We've seen how integer number lines can be used to graph integers. In this video, we will develop some techniques for calculating the distance between 2 points on such a number line. Let's start with an example. A kite is at an altitude of 100 feet above the ground and then descends to an altitude of 35 feet above the ground. What is the total change in its altitude? Use an integer number line to solve. This number line shows the 0 mark, 35, and 100. Each tick mark represents a change of positive 5. If you start at 0 and count by 5, for each tick mark, you can verify the graph of the two integers. The distance between the 2 points is the distance the kite has traveled. This distance is also known as the absolute value. If you count by 5 for each tick mark, from 35 to 100, you'll find that the distance is 65. Absolute value is always positive, and we use the absolute value symbol to show the distance, as shown here. Let's look at another example. A submersible is at a depth of 300 feet below sea level, and then moves to a depth of 75 feet below sea level. What is the total change in its depth? Use an integer number line to solve. This number line shows the 0 mark, -75, and -300. Each tick mark represents a change of -25. If you start at 0 and count by -25 for each tick mark, you can verify the graph of the two integers. The distance between the 2 points is the distance the submersible has traveled. This distance is also known as the absolute value. If we count the number of tick marks and count down by -25, we get -25, -50, -75, -100, -125, -150, -175, -200, and -225. The difference between these 2 points is -225. But absolute value is a distance measure, which is positive. So we enclose the number within the absolute value brackets to find the distance, which is +225. Let's look at a final example. A heron from an altitude of 20 feet above the waterline plunges into the water to capture a fish 5 feet below the waterline. Use a number line to find the vertical distance the heron traveled. This number line shows the 0 mark, -5, and +20. Each tick mark represents a change of 5. If you start at 0 and count by -5 when going from right to left, or +5 when going from left to right, you can verify the graph of the two integers. As you've seen in the previous examples, the absolute value is the distance between the 2 points. Since each tick mark represents +5 when going from left to right, the vertical distance is 25 as shown here. You've seen how absolute value is the distance between any 2 points on an integer number line. The technique used to find the distance involved counting the tick marks and knowing the value of each tick mark increment. In a later video, you will learn how to use integer subtraction and the absolute value symbol to calculate this distance.